That's really the question. What's the right dose? What's the right dose of fasting?
I'm curious. We've mentioned fasting a few times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we do OMAD sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it all the time, but there's within like the fitness industry right now, there's a lot of people that talk about fasting like an elixir of health, and it massively increases longevity. Right. And then there's another party of people who will take that content and be like, this is bullshit, and this is why like fasting might be useful or not. Are there legitimately any benefits to fasting as far as longevity is concerned? And maybe with the way that we're looking at fasting, you know, as a protocol, what ways do you think we might be getting it wrong with how we use it?
Yeah, good question. I'm just after what actually really works. And to get to that question, you have to factor in over time. You have to factor in long term, because there's this misconception that things work kind of in a straight line. And that's not true of almost anything. Like almost nothing works in a straight line. What you see is most things work fantastically well up front, and then there's attenuation down the line. So they don't work as good down the line. Some things dip under the curve, and then there's negatives down the line. Okay, that's how things actually work. And I don't care what you're talking about. It's, you know, we know that's true. Like with SSRIs, like they work fantastic up front, and then later on you got to take, you know, like a car full of the things. That's true of most things. So, and fasting is not excluded from that. I'm just saying that based on my experience over many, many years. So fasting is fantastically beneficial for longevity, for so many things. You know, it is a great practice.
Hey guys, you like cereal. I like cereal. Let's not eat the bad stuff though. That's why we've partnered with Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon has #1 amazing macros: 0 grams of sugar, 4 grams of carbs, 14 grams of protein, and 140 calories per serving. You're not getting all the icky sugar that you get from normal cereal. Magic Spoon is the way to go. That's why we love it, and it fits our diet. Andrew, how can people get it?
Absolutely. You guys got to head over to magicspoon.com/powerproject. You guys will see the variety pack. That's 4 different flavors, and it's really an awesome way to kind of dip your toe into the cereal bowl. So that way you guys can figure out which flavor you like the most. And when you go there, you're actually going to receive $5 off that variety pack. Again, magicspoon.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description. Let's get back to the video.
What I have seen, what I've experienced, and what I've seen with other people is that it doesn't work in a straight line. So you can see fantastic benefits up front, and then there's an attenuation effect as you get a few years into it, 3, 4, 5 years. And I've seen this pretty consistently with people that I've spoken with, and you start to see a kind of a cluster of things. One of those things is suddenly they have trouble dropping fat down the line. Another thing is that their hunger gets dysregulated. Okay, another thing is that their sleep can get dysregulated. And so you see this cluster of things. So what that speaks to is, what's the right dosing? That's really the question. What's the right dose? What's the right dose of fasting? Is it like, a way of life all the time, or is it better in sort of strategic doses? That's the main question to my mind with fasting. And then, is there a way that we can take fasting, which inherently, when we start to break it down and go, why does fasting work?
And we're just talking about, let me ask, we're just talking about like 16 and 20. We're not talking about multiple day fasts currently, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I also have found it to be super beneficial just to go, I don't know, 6 or 8 waking hours without food. And that could mean I wake up and eat, and then I don't eat again until later on in the evening. Or it could mean that I wait all the way until the evening and eat twice, at 3 and then again at 7 or something like that. So I've found that to be really beneficial. But I understand what you're saying. It kind of sounds like what you're saying is the longer that someone practices fasting, the more likely over a period of time they are to move away from it, which would be kind of proof that maybe it is causing some of these things that you said, like dysregulated hunger. And I have noticed some of that in myself, to where sometimes I'm like, holy shit, I think this has made me hungrier. I think this has almost re-regulated my hunger, because I think my hunger was like dampened for many years because of the way I was eating. To be a 330-pound power lifter, people are usually surprised that I didn't eat that much. Now I feel like I could enter an eating competition at this point with the way I can eat now.
That's good. Yeah, what I would offer with that is, like, where my road has taken me, after 40 plus years of doing this stuff, is that I approach everything like mixed martial arts. Like all of these things are techniques, and I can use any one of them. The question is, when do I want to use it? That's all. Like let's say fasting is like calf kicks, okay? And the question is, well, hey, are calf kicks good? And the answer is like, yeah, they can be fantastic, but I wouldn't make my whole fight game based on calf kicks. You know, I mean, you might win a fight, I don't know, but you know, there's times when you might have to throw a punch, you might have to like grapple, you might have to go for an arm lock, and it's really more about like carnivore. Is that bad or is that good? No, it's a great tool. It's like that's like a overhand right. Is keto a great tool? Yeah, that's like a head kick. Okay, so when do you use these things? And it's like the answer is, you know, this thing we're talking about is much more like a fight. It's much more like mixed martial arts than it is this. It's not a punching bag. It's like, you know, you can go to the punching bag and you just practice that Tyson body punch uppercut. You just practice that all the time. You're really good at that. Okay, but that's not what fights are like. Okay, fights go wherever they go, and you got to be prepared. So, you know, that's the way I approach it. These things are all good. But like you can overdo calf kicks, you know? So that's how I look at it.
Yeah. And something also interesting with like fasting nowadays, and I don't know if you mentioned this to me over the phone or something recently, but like nowadays I'll still look at it like fasting, but I just had a protein shake with some like coffee, and there's some heavy cream with coffee, but I'm not going to eat again until probably this evening. But even though that's calories, I'm still looking at as like a fast, you know what I mean? And technically I had calories, so a lot of people will be like, that's not fasting, but I don't necessarily need to, like, there are some days where I won't have something in the morning, but I'll have something like that, or I'll have a protein shake throughout the day. And the thing that happened with me over the years is just my hunger is not as voracious as it was, where if I would get hungry, I would have to fucking respond, or else my mood would I'd get annoyed or whatever. I'm not controlled by that anymore, but I can intermittently eat whenever I want and just be perfectly okay. It's like I have better signals of how much I should eat and when I should eat. And it's very auto-regulated. Like I don't count anymore, but it's very just intuitive.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. That's
Okay.
you hit on something pretty fascinating. So where I'm at now with this, and what I put in the book was that let's break fasting down, and why does fasting why does fasting work? Okay. So we start to break fasting down. We go, well, you know, you get autophagy, you get ubiquination. So you get the breakdown of stuff that has to go in the trash, kind of keeps things clean. Okay, that's good. You get the signal pathways activated. You get the sirtuins activated. You get AMPK activated. Okay, you know, that's good. And you start to just break fasting down into its concomitant mechanisms. And you go, okay, well, can we activate those apart from fasting? And yeah, wow, wait, actually we can. So one of the best ways is through the gut. So we can manipulate the bacteria in the gut to produce bifidobacteria, to produce bacteria that really help those things, that help those pathways turn on, that help, and you just keep making your list, like HDAC inhibition. That just means that we're making better copies of DNA so we can make proteins. Okay, well, we can do that with bifidobacteria. You know, in the gut, you can do it. And you just keep going down this list. And it's like, wow, yeah. So there seems to be probably a pretty good case that we can activate a lot of these same pathways before fasting so that we don't have to fast as long. And then on top of that, when we turn to the insulin side of the equation and we go, well, let's keep going. What's another reason fasting works? Well, one reason seems to be that you get this cessation or pause in signals down the IGF-1 IIS pathway. Okay, so when you look at glucose transport, and when you look at what gets turned on when cells bring glucose in, you have the metabolic pathway. Okay, and that sort of uses mTOR as kind of a throttle. So in the metabolic pathway, mTOR works like it works like the accelerator. It's like back off on the gas, or we need more gas. Okay. The other side of the equation is a pathway, the MAPK pathway, that controls progression of cell cycles. Okay. And so there's a theory on aging, the signal pathway theory, that has probably pretty good reason to believe that the more signals down that pathway, the faster you age. And if you just look at the signal pathways in bringing glucose in the cell, kind of makes a lot of sense. Makes a ton of sense. So fasting kind of turns that off, gives us a little break. Okay. The other thing is that fasting also helps replete achromantia. Okay. So Akkermansia is the other half of the commensal bacteria equation. It's the one we need to keep the gut lining working the way it should. And very difficult to feed through food. You can, but it's tough. But fasting repletes Akkermansia. So Akkermansia doesn't like dietary protein. The best way to understand it is your mouth makes saliva, and that saliva has glycoproteins or proteins in it, and you have bacteria in your mouth, and that's what they feed on. So Akkermansia feeds on saliva secreted in the gut, and it likes that. But when you have like too much protein in the diet, you're activating these growth signal pathways, okay? And you're advantaging other kinds of bacteria that prefer their nitrogen from the diet, okay? So there's a lot of things to think about here, but it seems to be complementary that when you are spinning up bifidobacteria, that helps Akkermansia. And if you do it before a fast, then you fast, you're spinning up Akkermansia, and you have this balance of things that you can make a really good case is optimal. Then the other side of the equation becomes, so when you're fasting, you're ceasing for the most part, the production of insulin. Okay. That's not bad, periodically. The other side of that equation is certain types of fibers tend to potentiate insulin sensitivity. Okay. So you have all these helper hormones around insulin. Like insulin doesn't do its job alone. You have the incretin proteins, which is GIP, GLP-1. You have adiponectin. So you have these other hormones, the family of insulin hormones that help insulin do its thing. And so you can make this case, and I tried to make it in the book, I hope I made a good case, that there's this way of eating that takes all the benefits of fasting and makes it better. You get insulin sensitization through fibers prior to fasting. You get this pre-activation of signal pathways before fasting. And I think that there's a proof of it. I'll probably have you guys try it, which is if you do it, you get hungrier way, way faster. Hunger is sort of one of your indicators that you've been fasting. Okay. What you see, like when most people start fasting initially, is they don't get that hungry. They're like, I'm kind of good. Feel pretty good. You have them start doing fibers the day before and like, man, I'm starving. What time are we eating? We were going to do a 24. Let's just dial that back. Let's eat at lunch. Yeah. You see it pretty fast.
Okay.